too happy, but then again I'm not too sad. I rode when I was hurt, when I didn't feel too bad. It's hard to write a song that means same to you as it does for me. Verse about a broken heart, chorus with some lovely melody. Lonely love is barley, hops, and grain. Cigarettes burning up, starting in my day. Some may call them vices, but I'm worried about the prices. What a shame. It's quite the year I've had.
What a shame. What a shame. Brand new song by our featured guest today, Andy Moore. Andy, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
That was awesome. That sounded good.
White Oak Revival song. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to
Title
hear
track.
we're going to hear a lot more about that. Brand new album. That's the title song off the album.
Yes.
What a shame. White Oak Revival. Keep that in mind. Don't forget it. I'm Lyndall Fraker. We're here with Marshfield Old School Times today. Really happy to have Andy Moore with us. Andy's Mr. Sound and Lighting for Marshfield, Missouri in Webster County, and has been for many, many years. I guess even since you was a kid, you were helping do a lot of that kind of stuff.
We'll go over all of it.
Absolutely. We wanted to play a little snippet of his new song to introduce the show today. And we got Logan back here. He's the producer figuring out how to do all this stuff. And we might play a little bit more at the end. So, Logan, don't be late. But anyway, thanks for joining us today. We're going to have a little fun today. Andy's quite a guy. Andy really is. He's a kind of a guy that many know but don't really know, including me. I really probably don't know Andy like I would like to get to him a little bit better. He's kind of the go-to guy though. If you need something done when it comes to sound and lighting and putting on a show, a concert. He's the guy people calls, and you're a busy guy.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I really do. I don't know. It all starts at the beginning, though. I mean, that's the only way I can even explain why I do any of this.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's where we're going to start.
Sounds good.
Yeah, as Gary Price would say, when did you come to America?
Okay, all right. Well. It'd have to start with my mom and dad.
Yep. Let's hear a little about that.
They came into this area in the early 70s. Art Moore and Joyce Moore. That my dad was 55 years old when I was born. My mom was 11 years younger. And they had big baby boom families before I was born. And I have a sister that's 2 years younger than me. So that kind of gives you an idea. Well, they bought 10 acres out on Vineyard Road, and I think that kind of the idea was maybe they definitely weren't hippies, but maybe back to the land, just getting out of the city, get in the country somewhere. But they were a little older, so it was a little tougher to do a lot of the stuff they wanted to do.
This was the 70s.
This was the 70s, yeah. So I was born in 77, and
so how many siblings or half siblings did you have?
There's right around 16 of us.
16 of you.
Yeah. So my dad.
This is going to be good. So be sure and listen. Okay.
My dad had a big family. My mom had a big family, and then they got married. So, oh boy, both of us, me and my little sister Becky, were born on that 10 acres. We were born at home. I was born in a trailer house that they had pulled onto that property, and Dad got hurt at some point and couldn't work, and they lost the trailer house. Got repoed.
Oh man!
I started thinking about it.
Are grown.
Yes,
okay. They moved on.
Some of this sounds unbelievable, but
Yeah.
like I said, there are a lot of people around that can verify.
Well, we're honored that you're sharing your story. We didn't bring you on here necessarily because you have a sensational story.
Well,
we just wanted to get to know a little bit more about you as a person, and because you're so accommodating to our community,
Well,
and you're such a big part of any fundraiser or any concert or any event that goes on. I mean, from the Cherry Blossom Festival to Reunion Fest to things at the school to the Webster County Fair. I mean, you name it, and you're there. So that's why you're here. But this fact that you have this incredible story makes it even more interesting.
But that story is a big part of all of it.
Because,
so go on. I'm sorry to interrupt. Well, and no, I appreciate it. It's we were both born there, and Dad got hurt, lost that place. He bought a bus that had been converted to an RV from Big Bill and Dorothy Hall.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Eddie's their son.
Yes. Yeah. Eddie's my neighbor. Yeah. And they put it up on blocks, and my little sister was born in that bus. I was 2. I swear I can remember when she was born. It was, it's hard to believe that you can remember something.
Was there anyone else there helping, or just your mom?
It was just my mom and dad, as far as I know. As far as I know.
No other family around.
Not that I know of. I'm sure, some of my mom's daughters, my sisters, were in and out, but I don't know if they were right. I don't know that for sure. But so that's, and all of this sounds like it could be a bad deal. We were pretty poor and everything, but it was an awesome childhood.
Yeah.
But how I got into music and into sound and all of that, my mom died when I was 10.
Oh.
So Dad was looking for something that we could do. It was just the 3 of us. And of course, this is in the 80s, and Dad's an older man. He has a daughter and a son, and he's like, we're gonna stick together.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna. Yeah. So he first bought some woodworking equipment, and we kind of messed around with it and used it a little bit. But I remember he took us to a little jam session. Dad, this is all a part of why I even play bass guitar. Dad had cut the tip of his finger off, and his fingernail grew over, and he couldn't fret a guitar and make it sound right. But he could show us how to. He set up a guitar that he played on his lap and played with a steel bar. Well, he would jam with some of the old guys, and he took us over to a jam one night, just over to somebody's house. And I was sitting there watching. It was probably a Friday night, and I was just enthralled by it. So, and Dad noticed. Well, I was probably 10 or 11. It was shortly after my mom passed away. So the next day, he took us to Morgan Music in Lebanon and bought me my first guitar. Still have it.
Yeah.
I really think he paid $80 for the guitar and the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so he started showing me how to fret a guitar. And Becky showed us both. And then I remember, it was a few years later, we just sat around and played at the house. And
did you immediately start kind of picking around and playing a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, trying to learn chords and that kind of thing.
And he knew enough to be able to teach you.
Yes, yeah. And rhythm. I remember Dad used to sit with a stick on his chair, because I had a hard time learning how to play in time. And he would just beat that stick on the chair. And that's how, and listen to me play and tell me when I was out.
Yeah.
Well, a few years later, he bought Becky a mandolin, and she started learning the mandolin. And then we realized we needed a bass. Well, none of us knew how to play a bass. Right. Dad didn't know how to play bass, but he went and bought one. He liked the way a 5-string bass sounded with that low string, but and he could fret bass strings, the bigger strings, but his hands, he had arthritis and he had that shorter finger and everything. So he bought a 4-string bass and a set of 5-string strings and just dropped the highest string. Well, that's how we all learned how to play bass. That's how I learned how to play bass at the same time Dad was learning. But he played bass when we were kids and playing around Marshfield and different things. And I'm sure it wasn't very good. We were just learning and trying to figure it out. But that goes to why I'm not afraid to be in front of people. Dad and Becky were not backward, but they weren't the ones I was always just put in front. I was in front, so I talked on the mic and everything. And that was, but that also leads into why the sound equipment. Dad started buying sound equipment. Well, I was interested in how to make all of it work. And I was the one that started learning all of that. So we just started out really small and bought, stole, and traded until, we had enough to play music.
Yeah.
But I remember on one of on the post that you made, Linda Rose Dickinson.
Yes.
She was the chamber president back then, if I remember right.
When President Bush came.
Yes. And so we played on the square the year after that.
Okay.
I think.
92.
Yes, and if I remember right, it was like a 4-day event, and I can remember we ran sound and Bob and Dawn Roast had their stage out there and played music and I may be mixing up several different Fourth of Julys, but I mean it was a big event.
Well, that could have been the Centennial or
It
Centennial.
might have been.
That would have been 05. That would have been
No,
about 10 years later. Okay.
this was the year after Bush was here. But like I said,
Yeah.
I could be mixing up a few different years, but I just remember that was probably one of the first sound jobs for different bands and stuff like that. We were just learning and trying to figure it out, and it was hours of work,
cool.
but it was just neat.
Yeah.
But Linda was, we volunteered a little bit at the chamber and just different things like that. But
did your little trio have a name?
yes, we were the Ozark Mountain Roadrunners.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember the name.
Yeah,
I remember the name.
and we played like that for several years. I don't even really remember what happened. Dad got. It was
probably getting close to 70 by then, right?
Well, yeah, and he passed away in early 2001, and he was 79 at that time.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
We just I probably got a job and just things, but I ended up playing bass with the Ozark Country Band for a long time, and really.
Now, who was in that?
Terrell Vestal.
Yeah.
And there was Lynn Howe and Greg Nixon.
Okay.
Were the guys.
And they still play here in the gym some, or some
Well,
of them do.
some of them do. Actually, Terrell plays with them occasionally.
Called the Country Review or something.
Yes, yeah. And Terrell probably was a big part. Well, he wasn't probably. He was a huge part of teaching me bass runs and different things like that.
Now, Terrell is related to one of the boys in the Jets, or is it
Yes.
Travis?
Well, Travis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Well,
we like to connect people in this show. I mean, that's kind of what we do. It's for history, and so we like to connect. But anyway, go ahead.
So Terrell, and we won't get into a lot of it, but Terrell was my first wife's uncle.
Okay.
Yes. So
okay.
And I knew Terrell before I knew her. As a matter of fact, that's how I met her.
Yeah.
And but Terrell is still. I don't talk to Terrell as much as I should, but he's still a part of my life. I mean, I learned a lot from Terrell.
Sure.
You think about people that have shaped your life, and Terrell's one of them. My dad, of course. I mean, just a huge influence on my life. And, I don't know. I can think of all kinds of things that. My dad was the kind of guy that loved junk, and he could build anything and he could put anything together. And he always told me, he said, if somebody else can do it, I can do it a little bit. And I've kind of lived by those words, and it's gotten me in trouble a lot. But
you can do a lot of things too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid to try anything.
That's really neat.
Well, and then probably, thinking about it, probably why Dad and Becky and I kind of stopped playing so much music together is I started building the house. I think I was 19 the first time I went to the bank, and talked to Peter Medlin at First Home Savings Bank, and he asked me a bunch of questions about what I was going to build, and I couldn't answer him. He said, "Why don't you come back in a year?" Yeah. So I did, and he let me borrow the money, and at that point, Dad actually gave me that 10 acres that I was born on and grew up on, so that I could borrow the money.
Really?
We built the house, Dad and me and a brother of mine, and
were you living on the 10 acres still?
Yeah, I was still living with my dad. And built that house back there, and moved into it in '99. Still live there. Don't plan on going anywhere.
Yeah, it's a neat place. Nice.
Well, thank you. I mean, we're planning on doing a lot more work to it.
Sure. Now, what about your sister?
My little sister is a teacher. I think she still picks up the guitar every once in a while, or mandolin, but probably not a lot. But she's a teacher, stays really busy, has 2 kids. They live over
around.
Yep, they live over by Conway.
Okay.
Close to Conway.
Did she teach at Conway then?
No, she teaches in Springfield, and I cannot remember right now where she teaches. She told me just the other day. Again, and I can't remember.
There's a lot of schools up there. I wouldn't remember them all either.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. And she's, I guess, married. Got
Married
children.
and
Yeah.
2 kids,
Yeah.
and and they're getting older. They're in high school now.
Right.
Definitely the oldest,
Right.
and yeah.
So you went all 12 years to Marshfield.
Yes, yeah.
Graduated in
95.
95.
Yeah.
And so did you immediately went to work after that?
Yes,
After school?
yeah. I graduated on a Friday and went to school, work on that Monday.
Where'd you go to work?
Went to work. Well, of course, I worked at the grocery store in high school, but then
At
I went
Cunningham's?
at actually at Price Cutter.
Price Cutter,
Yeah.
okay.
And I went to work in Springfield at Springfield Central System. So in school, my junior and senior year, I went to Grapho Tech, which I thought was an awesome program.
Absolutely.
And went through electronics.
Absolutely.
So when I got out, I started working for a company that did low voltage wiring and home theaters and security systems, central vacuum, you name it.
Yep. Yep.
But that was also kind of how I built my house, because every house I went into and then we were roughing in, I just look at how everything was built, and I would ask a lot of questions and try to figure things out. So,
so you got a little bit of an early preview of electrical then too in that position.
Yeah. And I kind of thought I knew a little bit about electrical until I started doing it. So it was a little different than I thought, but yes, I did that for 6 or 7 years. Then I actually went back to the grocery store for a little while, but I worked in Marshfield, I worked in Lebanon, and then my first son was born, Ashton, and I didn't want to work weekends and that kind of thing. So I went back to work doing low voltage wiring, but it was outside of Marshfield again. It was back in Ozark, and we worked all over Springfield and Branson and Ozark. So I did that for another 6 or 7 years, and that company actually went out of business. I worked for myself for about a year and a half, kind of taking care of the customers where there was a void, and a lot of pretty big life-changing events happened at that point, and I needed a job.
Yep.
And I wanted to work a job where I went to work at a certain time.
Yep.
I got off at a certain time, and somebody told me what to do.
Get a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Now, speaking of men in my life that have shaped my life, Randy Kester over at Crosscat.
Yeah.
So I built my house out of Crosscat. Randy could have looked at this kid that was coming in to build a house and, just said, "You go." But no, he didn't. He helped me all along the way, And if you knew Randy, he had a rough voice, and he was colorful language. Really liked Randy a lot.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
And I went into Crosscut when I needed a job, and I said, "Randy, you have any openings?" He goes, "Well, what are you looking for?" And I told him, I want to know when I start, when I end, and you tell me what to do. He said, "Well, what do you need to make?" I said, "I don't care if I make minimum wage." And he said, "Oh, don't say that," and it was just a few days later that actually Donna from Marshfield Electric called me. Randy had gone over and said, "Hey, this guy's looking for a job."
Recommended you probably.
Yeah. And that's how I started working at Marshfield Electric.
That is cool. What year was that?
2011, I believe.
2011.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
13 years ago.
So it would that be right? It was 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And
And you guys, you've done you've wired a lot of houses and buildings.
Yes. Yeah, I can't remember all of them at all. I walk back into houses I've worked on, and they look familiar, and I realize I've been there before.
Exactly.
So
you got, after obviously your dad passed, or maybe before that even, you started playing a little bit of music with some of the other guys.
Yes.
You mentioned the country.
Ozark Country
Band. So tell us a little bit about getting started with the band, and then how that has progressed. Talk about the different groups and so forth. And now you're at White Oak Revival, but you were with other bands prior.
Oh yeah,
different people. So go down that path.
Ozark Country, I was with them until after. Well, Ashton was born, and then 3 years later, Travis was born. And I think probably a year after he was born, I just thought I need to stay home a little bit more. And I mean, we played a lot, but it was weekends, and I thought, let's just. So I quit that band, and I didn't play in a band for probably 4 years. And then.
And about what time frame would this have been?
So Travis was born in 2007, and so from 7 to
Yeah.
11. Yeah,
About the
that'd
time
be
you started with Ellis.
about right. Yeah, yeah, and this corresponds with a lot of life changing
Yeah,
events
I
that were
understand.
going on, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so I found myself with a little bit more time on my hands in 2000. I went through a divorce. That's what happened. So
Yep.
so the boys are home half the time, and I'm by myself half the time.
Right.
So I'm looking for something to do.
Yeah.
And I started playing with Keith Hewlin and Michael Cantrell, and we just started playing at the house, just and around fire or whatever, just something to do. And put together a band, and we did that for a year or two. And then
Did it have a name?
Vineyard Road.
That was
Vineyard Road. Yes, that was Vineyard
I
Road.
remember that very well.
And so then, in that time period, I met my current wife, Tanya. Tanya would too. So she went to school in Marshfield also. She was graduated, I guess, 3 years before I did. So my joke is I remember her in school, but she doesn't remember me. But anyway, found out that she is a great singer and a really good songwriter too. So kind of I stepped away from Vineyard Road, and she and I started just kind of messing around with different music. And Lane Smith, who went to school in Marshfield, and Lane played in Vineyard Road also. And I've known Lane since I don't even remember not knowing Lane.
Right.
So we put together a band and played for another 3 or 4 years. And math isn't going to work out right, but it was several years we played together. And things kind of slowed down with that band, and this is just the progression of bands. I mean, it happens, and different people have different things going on in their lives and can't do all the practice and all the playing.
Life changes.
So it just changes. Yeah. So that band slowed down, and Lane started doing some open mic kind of things. He writes great songs. 1953, which is on this new album, he wrote it after a trip to Memphis. But at any rate, he was doing some open mic things, and COVID was kind of going on at that time too. So he was doing some live stream things. Well, White Oak Revival saw him, and I don't have all of those details, but they saw him, and I'm not sure if he opened for them or they just saw him at one of the open mic deals, and they actually saw him play 1953, and I think they went right up to him. This was Tony and James.
Tony and James. Okay.
Yeah, went right up to him and asked if he wanted to join.
Why don't you mention their last name?
Tony Seitz.
Tony's a fireman.
The fireman here in Marshfield Fire Protection District, and then James Burrow from Springfield. But Tony and James used to work together, and they are the ones that started White Oak Revival. Those two. They started it as a duo and added different members. Well, after Lane started with them, I think Lane made it to 2 or 3 practices, and their bass player quit.
Oh, really?
Well, they were just kind of, Tony and James, I think, just looked at Lane and said, "Look, man, we don't know what we're gonna do now. If you're out, we get it. That's fine." And Lane's like, "Nah, I know a guy." So they called me, and I told them, I'd love to come jam with you, but I'm not looking for anything permanent right now.
Right.
Well, I went and jammed one time, and I was in. Yeah, I wanted in. So they're talented. Those guys, they're all very talented. Yeah. And there's 2 keys to playing with guys like that. Well, the main key is if you own sound equipment, it helps a lot because everybody needs sound equipment. But I don't know. You try to be good enough to keep up with guys like that, and hope they don't realize what you're doing.
Right. I was trying to think. So we did the first Reunion Fest in 2012, and I don't think we had you do the sound yet. No. You were doing the fair maybe by that time. I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah.
But Mark West with Down on Productions did the first year or 2 or 3, and then we obviously, I think maybe
Jeff did.
Maybe you played. Year. Who?
Jeff Ward. He did sound one year, and I actually came and helped him.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I remember that now. But then I think you played with Vineyard Road, maybe?
Yes.
And you guys had played once or twice, and then you we locked in on you to do the sound and have ever since. But And then, of course, I don't remember when you first played with White Oak Revival, but
It's been probably 4 years
yeah,
ago
it's probably
now,
been 4 or
something
5.
like that.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's where we are with that. But
Yeah.
we obviously learned early on that you were Mr. Reunion Fest sound and lighting guy as long as you want to be. So
Well, thank you.
yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I have a blast.
And you've
doing
been a
that.
good partner in the last couple of years, helping me too to promote it, and we've worked on the crowds together, and I think last year we had a great
It
turnout,
was
and
a
we've
good
kind of
year.
figured out that Reunion Fest doesn't need the competition of the fair and the rodeo.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so we're trying to schedule it the week in just prior to that, which this year will be June the 29th.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and then the 4th will be the following Thursday, I think, and the fair and rodeo will go from Tuesday through Saturday that following week. So we'll be just ahead of it, and
I think
we'll have
it's
that competition.
gonna be awesome.
I think it worked really well last year. So we're going to try to carry that same thing through if we can.
Yeah, the fair actually. Greg Brandstetter, I was he was the president of the fair board,
Right.
and I'm pretty sure that was the time period that I was working at Price Cutter in Marshfield.
Yeah,
I
I've
was
been back
a
there a ways.
manager there, and he came in and asked if I'd be interested in doing the sound.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So,
Yeah.
And that's been, well, Ashton, my oldest son, will be 20 in August,
Right.
and it was before he was born. So
Yeah.
it's been over 20 years.
Over 20 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of your son, let's talk about your
Yes.
boys, because that's your kind of the apple in your eye for sure.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, we're halfway through already. See
you
how fast
serious?
it goes?
Yeah.
I told you to go fast.
I've been rambling a lot, but
Well, that's
yeah.
what we want. That's what makes it easy for me. Talk about Ashton and Travis.
Well, let's start
Yep,
with Ashton
yep.
here. So he's just a good kid. He's a smart kid. He's a hard worker. We cut a lot of wood and firewood. And several years ago, we cut like 14 cords that winter.
Wow.
And anyway, I'd go out early on a Saturday and let him sleep, but I'd just look up and he'd be right there. And I'm like, well, I was gonna let you sleep in. He said, I can't let you be out here by yourself.
Yeah.
So, he's just a hard worker and
Yeah.
just do anything you ask. Well, a few years ago, I guess it was probably his junior year. He started talking about the military, and I was proud of that. But I was also thinking, okay, we have a couple years. Hopefully, he'll change his mind.
Yeah, sure.
Everything going on in the
Still
world.
a worried father.
Yes. So he started out talking to an Air Force recruiter, and of course, this was pretty early. He had a long time before he could actually join,
Right.
quite a bit. So, and I don't know if there's a rotation on recruiters or what, but that recruiter stopped answering. And Ashton scored really high on his ASVAB. I mean, he's a smart kid. He could kind of do whatever he wanted to do. But for some reason, that Air Force recruiter stopped talking to him. Well, a buddy of his that had graduated the year before called him and said, hey, he had joined the Navy, and he called Ashton and said, my recruiter's going to be at the school. Would you mind meeting him? And
Right.
Ashton's like, he knew it was going to help his buddy out. So he said, sure, I'll meet with him. And he did. And he's like, I'm joining the Navy.
That was it.
And and we talked about it, and I said, well, when do you think you want to go to boot camp? And he said, probably I'll wait until after my birthday in August. Okay.
After he graduates.
Well, yes, he'd graduate, and his birthday would hit. He'd be 19, and that's when he would join. He'd have his birthday at home. Well, about probably been May of that year, he had to go to MEPS, the medical examination up in Kansas City. So he went, and I knew about when he'd be traveling home. So I called him on my way home from work.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, how'd it go? And he goes, well, my ship date is, I think it was June 1st. And I may have that date wrong.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't understand what you mean. What are you talking about? Your ship date? He said, well, that's when I'm going to boot camp. And I said, what happened to wait until after your birthday? And he goes, the job I want, I've got to ship out that day.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, and I mean, it was awesome. But he had his 19th birthday in boot camp. and he's about to have his 20th birthday in August. So it's pretty awesome.
Got a year under his belt. Was it a 4-year program?
I believe it's an 8-year contract, but I think that 2 or 3 years of that will be inactive reserves at the end, and I believe it's a 5-year total with boot camp and everything. And I could have some of those details.
Sure.
Ashton had it a little confused, and before he went in and then, correcting some of that information, there's a language that's totally different in the military. So Dad doesn't understand everything.
Right.
So.
I wouldn't either. What's he do then?
He is an aircraft or airplane mechanic.
Okay.
But he's been on the flight deck of a carrier most of the time that he's actually been after training.
Sure.
So he's
at sea a lot.
Yes. Yeah. He's already been out twice on a carrier, and it's just awesome. He's having an adventure that nobody else, most people don't ever have.
It's a good deal for a lot of young men. It really is. And, or gals as well. But, you come back, you got the GI Bill, you've got all the benefits for the rest of your life. I mean, it's really, there's a lot of benefit to doing that. When we're not in war times.
Exactly. That's the problem. Yeah. But right now he is not in the South China Sea.
Yeah.
He's not in the Middle East. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's Travis.
So Travis is 17, 18?
Yes. He'll be 17 in June.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I bought both of the boys instruments when they were really young. I mean, I always said they don't have to play music. I'm not going to force them to play music, but there will always be a good instrument that fits them and is as easy as it can be to play, available for them at any time. Right. And Ashton picked up guitar, and he actually played bass with me and Tanya and Lane on some shows. I mean, he had the talent, but Ashton didn't have the passion that Travis has.
Yeah.
And Travis, I taught him everything I know, and it took about 2 weeks, and then he was better than me.
Yeah, he's got that natural ability.
That's
no question about that.
That's a fact. I say that anybody can pick up a guitar, learn some chords, and sound good. I truly believe that anybody can. It's just a matter of sticking with it and learning it, and you're gonna sound good enough to make music. But Travis has something different, and I don't really get it, but it's his only real focus, and he's just always playing. So
and practice makes perfect.
Yes.
You do have to practice in life. Whatever it is you're doing, you have to practice.
Yes. Talent only takes you so far.
Takes you, and it'll get you further than not having the talent and working hard. But you got to have them when you put them both together. Then there's no end to where you can head and go. But that's awesome. He is phenomenal. Phenomenal young man, a phenomenal guitar player, musician. It's really neat to watch these young fellas just continue to get better every time you hear them.
It's crazy.
And do a new song and how much determination and patience and practice that they have to put into each song to learn it and get it right,
And the level of perfection that they want to attain. They really work to have it the way they want it. And so the Jets.
So go ahead and talk about the Jets.
The Jets, the name comes from their first initials. So it's Jimmy, Emmett, who's your grandson, Travis, and Zane.
Right.
And
so these four boys got together a year and a half, 2 years ago. And just at school, and there was I think a school function.
Senior project.
Zane's
senior project.
And they pulled these boys together and just formed a little garage band, and here we are nearly 2 years later, and they've played quite a bit, and they just keep getting better.
Yes. Yeah. They're going to have a blast. I mean, they can, if they would get a little more music, they could play about anywhere that goes back to that perfection that they're trying to get.
And then you got a little spread in ages. So you got a couple in college. And Travis are still in high school. But it's really remarkable to watch them and see them grow in that. And of course, we're able so far to provide a place for them to practice here in the building. We have a room up here we're allowing them to do that with, and so it's fun to share in that progress as well.
And they're going to play at the Union Festival.
Absolutely. So we'll talk for just a minute about Reunion Fest. We're doing okay on time, but we got about 20 minutes. But so this year, June 29th, and we've lined up 4 bands because we love all these guys
Yeah.
and gals. I mean, they're all our friends. They're all Marshfield. A lot of them are Marshfield grads. And so it's probably the first year we've had kind of the 4 anchor bands that have helped us with the Reunion Fest the most in the time that we've been doing this, which is now be the 14th year. But the Jets, the band we just talked about, the young boys from, my grandson, your son, and the other 2 boys, and then the second band will be you guys, which White Oak Revival, and again, tell a bit more about your new album if you want to.
Oh yeah. Well, so the song that you heard when we came in is the title cut to our new album. It's an EP. It's 6 songs, and that it's What a Shame. And actually, that song is pretty cool. It's the James, our drummer, and I wrote that. So
Yeah.
I wrote a version of it years ago, and James said, "Man, just send me some lyrics, send me something, you know." So I sent him those lyrics, and he turned it into what it is.
Right.
Now, as far as the melody, and changed some of the words around and really structured it different. And then, of course, no song is done until the band gets a hold of it and everybody puts their flavor on
Right.
it. But that's the title cut. There's 1953, which Lane wrote that one after a business trip down to Memphis. Let's see, one of them actually, the words changed. I'd have to look up or not the word, but the name changed.
A few years ago.
Yeah, so it's Josephine. Oh my gosh, Good Night Josephine is one Tony wrote about his grandma, and it's just an awesome song. Um, He's Coming for Me. So White Oak Revival, sometimes if nobody's heard our music, they'll ask if we're a religious band because it kind of sounds that way. We're not at all. However, He's Coming for Me, it's worth a listen. It's different than anything we've done before as far as recording, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty cool.
Touches on faith.
Oh yes, yeah.
Would you guys say that you're new country, country rock, red dirt? You're kind of a mix.
Yes.
I kind of look at you as being a little more, rock, but I know you're probably still classified as country, fast country.
I think everything you said. You're right.
Yeah.
Red dirt, which red dirt's not really even a genre. It's
Texas country or something.
Yeah, it's the kind of music that comes out of those regions, Texas and Oklahoma. But and obviously we're not that. I don't know.
Who would be a national band that you would compare to, just for the listening audience? I mean, that you would say, well, we kind of play music like that band would play, or like that guy would play.
I'm sure there's a band, but
I didn't know if there was anybody that come to your mind.
No, not right off the bat. And like I said, I'm sure there's somebody that's out there. But I guess James is probably a rock drummer. I mean, you would say he is a rock drummer. I'm about as country as it gets as far as my style, how I know how to play, how I learned to play. Tony is all over the place.
His vocals are phenomenal.
Yeah, he can do from country to modern rock. Lane, I would classify as kind of blues. A lot of blues sound to him. So I can't think of anybody.
Right. It's a great sound. It's very unique.
We just kind of play what we like, and we try to play the covers that we play are pretty obscure covers, and then we can turn them into our own thing.
Yeah.
And nobody's comparing.
Nobody wants to play. If you're a real musician, you don't want to play "Stairway to Heaven" or something.
Right? Yeah. So
don't butcher that song.
And I absolutely love Leonard Skinner, but I don't want to do "Sweet Home Alabama" anymore. And things like that. So I mean, I still do. I'd love to jam around, but like in our shows, we're just it's not what we do.
So you guys will go on somewhere maybe around 6 o'clock or something like that, and then Belford will follow you. And Belford, kind of the band that helped get this whole thing kicked off, or was at the time James River Band, but a lot of the same members there, and so we haven't had them here for a few years. They they've been playing I think the Springfield Fair, and they had been doing quite a bit of other stuff. And then last year I think they had a member that had surgery, so
Yes.
they kind of laid out and didn't get to play much at all last year. So we're glad to have them back this year,
Heck
and
yeah.
they've got a following of Marshfield, you might say, kids that now adults that are my age or a little younger. But so there's a following there. We hope we'll be able to come this year, and then the final band is coming on somewhere around 8:30 or whatever would be
Dirty
the Dirty
Saints.
Saints, which are a well-known band in Southwest Missouri. They play the casinos over in Oklahoma. They're just a great
Great
band,
band,
and they
yeah.
play a lot of '80s cover stuff. Jeff Ward, MHS graduate, Kelly Bowman, MHS graduate. So, and this happens to be Jeff's 40th
40th.
anniversary, graduating from high school. So they're going to be gathering, obviously, that class, and they'll be hopefully coming to support and listen to Jeff. And so it's going to be a really fun night. I think this could be potentially one of the biggest reunion fests we've ever had, and that's what we want: people to have a good time, get together, reminisce, and as we all get older, another year, we all, at least for me, I kind of crave to reminisce about things. It's one reason I'm doing this show. It's important to talk about the days gone by and share those stories with those after us and pass those stories down. And we can do that if we gather and face to face do that. So
And another important
Uh-huh.
aspect there is this is not strictly for
that's right.
Marshfield graduates.
That's
I
right.
mean, obviously there will be MHS
Sure,
reunions
sure.
going on, and
Sure.
it's a place where all the graduates can get together. But this is open to
Absolutely.
all adults.
Yes, and thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning it, Andy. We want to stress that. We want a big a turnout as we can get, and we all have friends and neighbors that we visit with and share good times with, and that's what this event is for. So glad you mentioned that. It will be $15. We've held that price now for a few years. I think it used to be 12, but 15 will help us pay the bills, and that's all we try to do. We usually don't have much left. We do try to give the band some money. They deserve that. Andy will do the lighting this year and sound, of course, again, and so there's some expense there that we have to take care of, but we try to keep the price. It's the best. It's the best deal in town. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
For 15
it is.
bucks for a night of entertainment with 4 bands, reminiscing. There'll be food wagons here. I'm not sure who all will be here. I think Get Whipped will be here, and there'll be some others. But
It's a blast.
hopefully y'all can
It is,
come
yeah.
and enjoy the evening with us. It's really a great kickoff to that Independence Day week
Yes.
with that, and then the fair will be starting on Tuesday, and then the 4th will be on Thursday this year, through the week there. So it's a great time. Well, Andy, this has been awesome. What else you want to touch upon before we wrap it up here?
Well, I don't know. One thing that just keeps running through my mind is not everyone shares this opinion, but I honestly, I we live in the best country that this world has ever seen.
Mhm.
I honestly believe that. And we get to live in Webster County
Mm-hmm.
that I truly believe is the best place. And you can believe me or not, but I
Yeah.
truly
Yeah.
believe that we are blessed to live in the best place in the greatest nation
No doubt about
on
it.
the face of the planet.
No doubt.
And I don't know. Everybody has a different opinion. Everybody has different experiences. I've had good experiences. I've had bad experiences. But I guess maybe part of it is I choose to think that because it's where I am. But I honestly believe this is the greatest place in the world, and I'm just happy to be here.
You know, I totally agree, and I can tell you after spending 12 years in Jeff City and 8 in the Missouri House of Representatives, I mean, you do have that sense of pride. Not every county in Missouri has what we have
Yeah.
when it comes to camaraderie and the closeness that we have, the friendships. It's just a feeling that
Yeah.
it's hard to describe. Some don't really understand it,
Right.
but we do have that here in Marshfield and Webster County, and I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Just very, very proud to be from here, and you know, we're not perfect. Nobody's
Oh, no.
perfect, but we We try to treat people right. I think one reason that I mentioned what I did about you in the introduction without patronizing you, but you've got that can-do attitude. You're always smiling. You've always got a positive thing to say about people, about whoever it might be we're talking about, and that goes a long way. I mean,
It
people
does.
recognize that, and that passes on to your boys and others that are around you, and that's one reason your boys are who they are. I mean, it's the influence that you and I'm sure their mother and
Yes.
your wife and the various people around them. I did. What about the brothers and sisters? Are you remain contact with any
Oh
of them?
yeah. So
Just curious.
yeah, and really, my mom had all daughters, and
Oh wow.
except for me,
Yeah.
and then they all live in the around
Yeah.
Springfield, Rogersville, in this
They do.
area.
Okay.
So I have one sister that's out in California,
Uh-huh.
but yes, we all stay very close.
That is cool.
Um,
I was curious.
Yeah, and actually, you've probably met some of them
Some
and
of
didn't
them
even know.
didn't know
Yeah,
it, yeah.
but they're all really close. Now,
That's good.
my dad's side, um, he had all boys except for one.
Uh-huh.
It was a little bit rougher side of the family,
That's
just to be
interesting.
honest.
She had all girls except for one, and he had all boys except.
And my little sister. So,
Yeah.
so actually,
Well, yeah.
except for
Yeah,
two.
you-
So,
yeah.
a lot of them are actually already gone. I have a brother up in Eureka by St. Louis, and really, he's an electrician up there.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean that's not how I got into it at all, but yeah, he helped me wire my house, and
Oh, he
so
did.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
do communicate with most all of them.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
really
and
good.
it's
That's
not
good.
an everyday thing
No, but
at all, but
you have a decent relationship. You're
yes.
not like your enemies or anything.
no,
That's
not at
great.
all. They're
That's really
yeah.
good. That's good.
So it was all my nieces and nephews were my cousins. They might as well have been my cousins
Yeah.
because we're all
Same
about the
age.
same age.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, some of them are older than I am.
Yeah, yeah.
I like to make them call me Uncle Andy, but no, but yeah, that was kind of the family dynamic. I was, and my little sister were uncle and aunt, but they were cousins. Everybody was cousins.
What did your dad do for a living?
Oh
before
boy, Dad was in the Navy in World War II.
Okay. Oh wow.
So I grew up hearing Great Depression and World War II stories.
Oh yeah.
And he did heavy construction for a while. He was actually a barber for a while. He worked at Lily Cup.
Lily Tulip.
Yeah, in Springfield. He did propane work here in town. Dad did a little bit of everything.
I see.
Yeah, and I to answer that question, I don't know. He just did a little bit of everything.
Well, I remember his name. I can't place him, but I certainly remember his name. But probably from doing music or something.
Yeah. Yeah, he grew up in the Boot Heel.
Yeah.
And then during the Depression, they ended up moving to St. Louis. So he lived in St. Louis until the 50s and then moved to Springfield sometime in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And I think he was doing propane work in the early 70s, and they asked him to come to Marshfield to work. And was it Webster? I cannot remember the name of the gas company at that time.
Yeah,
and
there was a Webster Gas.
Okay, I think it was Webster Gas, and
Empire bought most all those little companies up, eventually.
So, yeah, and I wish I could ask him some of these questions.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that I'm like.
Now, what was your mom's maiden name?
Her maiden name was Guernsey, and she was from Willow Springs area.
Okay.
And she was a nurse and worked at the hospital, and Dad got hurt. And like I said, some of my sisters and brothers could probably help me with this, but I don't know all the timelines. Yeah. But he got hurt and he was in the hospital, and that's how they met.
I see.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, her maiden name was Guernsey.
Okay.
But
he ended up in Marshfield because of his job.
I believe that's right. Yeah, and he didn't even know where Marshfield was.
Yeah.
When they, which I don't know how you live in Springfield, that long, but he always claimed he didn't even know where Marshfield was.
Well, what's on the horizon? What do you see going forward for White Oak Revival, for Andy and Tanya Moore, for the boys, for What other gigs do you have this summer?
Oh, we have
coming up?
several coming up. Of course, we play next weekend at Owen Theater in Seymour.
Seymour,
And
okay.
then Reunion Fest, and we're going to play White River Brewing a few once or twice. We're going to play Boat Town Brewing this year. We're going to actually have
Boat Town's in Lebanon on the downtown now.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Where's White River?
It's in Springfield on Commercial Street. I
Okay.
believe. Yeah.
Okay.
We have a show down in Arkansas this year.
Do you?
Yeah. So I mean, we just have several Harvest Days. We'll be back at Harvest Days again. That's kind of we like playing that one a lot.
Kind of
I mean,
an
it's
anchor
kind of
there.
like Reunion
Yeah,
Fest. We
yeah,
like playing
yeah.
that if we can. And
Sure.
yeah, there's several. Oh, the biggie that's coming up in November. We actually get to open for Confederate Railroad.
Yeah, talk about that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Mike Totten got
Uh-huh.
a hold of me and asked if we were doing anything on that day, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Because I've learned that can be a dangerous question.
Exactly.
And he started telling me. So it's an Mike Totten and Matt Mannery
Mm-hmm.
and there were three guys, and I can't get it out of my head.
Kind of the
right now,
FFA dads.
Yeah, FFA dads. So they all, those three guys got together and decided they were going to put on a big show to benefit the Marshfield FFA, and that's exactly what they've done. So they somehow got Confederate Railroad
Mm-hmm.
here on November 2nd, and we get to open for them.
Yeah.
So
You'll be at the high school gymnasium.
Yep. I think it'll be at the Carl and Glessy. Yeah.
Oh, Carl and
Honestly,
Glessy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that will be an awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Randall Hafka.
Yeah.
That's who the other. There we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really neat. Do you foresee continuing to play music as long as you can?
Yeah. I'll always play.
And you put in a long work week too. You work for Marshfield Electric and 40+ hours a week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always there.
You're 8 to 5, and then you get off at 5, and then on a Friday night or Saturday or whatever,
There's practice. There's
you guys
moving
practice.
equipment.
It's a busy time.
Yeah.
And then the side gigs of doing lighting and sound for events.
Yes. And honestly, on the lighting, that's huge. White Oak Revival. Tony is the lighting
Is he?
expert.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know lighting like he does. I mean, he's the guy. Yeah. So Tony Sites.
Yeah.
If we have,
We'll have all of you back on maybe
That'd be
later
cool.
this summer.
Yeah.
And hear a little bit more about those guys because it's interesting. Matter of fact, as we get around Reunion Fest time, I'd like to have all of the bands come in for a
that'd
bit
be awesome. Yeah.
and get to know a little bit better, and maybe we can do that latter part of June or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be great. Well, that's we've got about 5 minutes, and our producer's not here. He should be here to wrap this thing up for us. But anything else you want to touch on?
You asked what's kind of in the future.
Yeah.
Tanya and I are pretty much empty nesters right now.
Yeah.
Travis is
Yeah.
pretty busy, and I've
See,
noticed.
be a senior next year.
Yes, he'll be a senior next year. But I've noticed 16 is kind of the cutoff. Once they get that license, they're on the move.
And it probably was for you and I.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure I disappeared, but
Yeah.
but no, Tanya and I we bought just a little bit more land, and we're working on it,
Yeah.
and we have all kinds of plans. She's awesome. She's
Yeah.
a good wife and good. I mean, she's my best.
She
friend,
worked?
and she works at Tyler Pipe. She's been there for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Good.
We just kind of both been around here
That's
forever.
great.
We kind of think alike, which is scary, and just
Oh,
have a
that's
lot of
awesome.
plans.
Nothing like having a good partner.
Yeah.
That's your spouse. That's for sure. Nothing better. That's for sure.
And she keeps me very busy.
Oh yeah,
She's
yeah.
good
Do you
plan.
guys expect to record another album? Maybe.
I hope so. We probably want.
Is this your first one?
No, this is the second.
Second,
The second
okay.
one, and then we've recorded a few things just going into the studio and doing them live, and which mostly these.
Can you do those? Get those on YouTube as well?
Yes,
So
yeah,
all-
everything is on.
All your catalogs on there.
As a matter of fact, it's on Spotify, Pandora, any kind of digital streaming platform you can think
Okay.
of, it'll be there.
And how does that work? Do you subscribe to your channel? or-
So I'm not. Yes, absolutely.
YouTube
It would be
channel?
great if the more subscribers to the YouTube channel, the
Yeah,
better. But you can get all of that on YouTube Music. But you can subscribe on Spotify and
Sure.
Apple Music, all of that.
Great.
Yeah, it'd just be awesome. The more subscribers, the better.
Yeah.
And yes, we do plan on recording more, but we probably won't do it next year it'll be the year.
Yeah,
It is.
I'm sure it's a lot of work.
It's more work than you think. I mean, it really is, because we try to at least put 2 or 3 songs on that we don't play. We try to put some new stuff on there. Now, several of these songs we've played for a while live, but we decided to record, and then there are songs that we've never played before.
Yeah.
So it takes months of just practicing those and getting them down and getting their arrangement right, and where it's muscle memory to go and record them, make sure the tempo's
Right.
right. Just a lot of details.
Right. What was the name of your first album?
It was Stay.
Stay.
Yes.
Okay. White Revival Stay.
Yeah, and which that's the title song.
That's
also.
yeah. And how many songs were on that album?
There were 5 on that.
5.
Yeah. So threw an extra one in there.
Yeah.
This time.
When's your next gig?
Next weekend.
Next
So,
weekend.
yep. Owen Theater, Seymour.
Owen Theater, Seymour. Yeah, and that's a little series they do in that little
Yes.
restored, and they pack their house, don't they?
We played there last year, I believe, and
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Was
I
it?
mean, I couldn't believe that they packed it like
Yeah.
that, and just tons of people.
It
in
probably
there.
hold what, 300 people or something.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
It's not huge. It's
yeah.
sort of narrow, but
Right.
I was in the movies there years ago when I was a young man. But
yeah.
it's pretty neat what they did over in Seymour.
It is, yeah. That's a neat place. It's
Yeah.
a fun place to play. It sounds good in there. It's
Mhm.
probably loud, but
Sure.
it sounds good.
Well, it's been great to have you on, Andy, and to hear your story, and it is a cool story. It's
Well,
pretty neat.
thank you.
It's pretty neat, and what you've done, with your boys and teaching them, and I know you've been a great role model for
Well,
them.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
kind words.
absolutely.
It's.
Yeah,
Well, I've had a good life.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
been an awesome life.
you have. And,
Interesting.
and if you need any sound for a concert or something, well, holler at Andy. If he can't get to it or something, I'm sure he could connect you with the right people.
Should be able to.
Yeah.
Can help.
I thought I might mention just for a minute about Marshfield High School Times. July the 1st will be a year that we've been doing this show, and we've missed a few Saturdays because I've been out of town or something, but we've had a great time with this, and we're continuing to learn a lot more about Marshfield and the history of Marshfield. And we've tried to bring a variety of guests. In other words, we've bring those folks that were around during the Depression and the World War II and those days, but then we blend in, we'll call them young folks like Andy, that come along and but still have an interesting story, and it all works together, and it's a spider web or quilt. It's a quilt work of putting people together in our community to make it what it is. And I like the connections. I like to learn about who's connected to who and so forth. And it's pretty amazing that when you start getting down to find out who is connected. So we're going to wrap it up. We do have guests planned for next Saturday. I think it's the 18th, May the 18th. And with that, we're going to leave you today, and we're going to end the show today with a little bit of Andy's song "What a Shame" from the album "What a Shame." So we're going to end with that. Logan, are we ready, Mr. Producer? Okay. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Appreciate it. That was fun.
You bet. We're going to play the song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So don't leave. Okay.
Played lots of music. Well, I sang a lot of songs. Sung about my worst ideas. Hell, I tried to write a few songs. Empathy and honesty, things that don't come naturally. Wish it were more commonplace. Know that things aren't always as they seem. Lonely love is barley, hops, and grain. Cigarettes understand what I'm saying. Life's not all that bad. It's not what I expected. I lost all I never had. Lonely love is barley, hops, and grain. Cigarettes burning up, starting in my day. Some may call them vices, but I'm worried about the prices. What a shame. It's quite the year I've had.